What is up, everybody? This is Lyle with No Hippie Trucking and Transportation Wannabe. And as you could tell from the surroundings in this video, a little bit different than the last few. I'm back home for about a 21-day break, and I'm extremely happy about that. Take a couple days to recuperate, and then it's going to be time for me to start doing a couple videos for my barbecue and cooking channel, and doing a few things with my wife. Anyway, I had a question in regards to PSD training and what happens if you go to orientation and you don't get picked by a trainer to do your training over the road. That was the situation I was in, was that I didn't get picked up by a PSD trainer, so I ended up doing my training on the pad. Now at the time, it seemed that the classes that were actually doing their TNT training, or excuse me, PSD training in Salt Lake City on the pad were about, let's say, maybe 6 or 7 were getting or staying on the pad, and then they were joining previous classes that were in front of them. So at any time, at any given time, you could have 30 to 40 people getting training on the pad. Personally, I like the PSD training on the pad because the training on the pad was specifically geared towards passing your CDL exam. One thing that is a downfall from doing on the pad is you do lose a little bit of real world driving experience, but listen, you're going to pick up all that experience you need during the TNT phase of your training, so don't necessarily think that you're really missing out on a lot. Now, one of the things I didn't like about doing the training on the pad is it's a little bit more structured. You are going to be you know, the hours are going to be, you know, pretty long. You're going to be there like 7 in the morning until like 4:30-ish or something like that at night, and you're going to be doing that 7 days a week. After, you know, when you're out with your PSD trainer, you're going to be driving, you're going to be doing all that, but you're probably going to have a little bit more, you know, you're going to have a little bit more experiences. The only experience that I had when I was at Salt Lake City was walking around that luxurious Ramada because there's really nothing else around there. But during your PSD, if you're out with the trainer, you're going to be driving all over the country. Like I said, you're going to have plenty of time to do that during your TNT phase. So don't necessarily worry about that. If you are one of the people that ends up staying at a terminal, getting your training on site, what you need to tell your next trainer, which is going to be your TNT trainer, is that you have limited driving knowledge. And here's what I mean by that. So when you're out doing your PSD training, if you happen to go out with your trainer's going to be pretty much awake during all your driving. Most likely he's going to be in the passenger seat the entire time that you're driving. When you go into TNT, that's going to be pretty much a team operation. Maybe not the very beginning. He or she may hang out a little bit longer just to kind of check on you, but in reality, you're going to be running your clock, he's going to be running his clock. Here's kind of where it gets a little bit tricky. Depending on where your first load is going or what your first drive is going to be, a lot of the driving that you haven't done yet, your TNT trainer may think that you've done it. Whether it's coming down a 6% grade for 3 miles, or it's, hell, it could just be driving in the rain. It could be pulling into a fuel island or a rest area. I mean, it could be little things like that that you may not have under your belt yet, which are things I didn't have under my belt yet. You know, I remember the first time I pulled into a fuel island, I pulled in like I was driving a car, and my trailer was all like, you know, around the corner and everything, and it was just something that hadn't been taught. You know, I hadn't learned how to get my trailer under me pulling into a fuel island. So, you know, if you haven't had that chance to go out driving before you get with your TNT trainer, just get with them. Like, seriously, just tell them, you know, here's what I'm lacking. I've had a chance to drive around Salt Lake City, you know, at 58 miles an hour, and you know, whatever the situation is, and just let them know so they do know to maybe hang out that little extra time, or tells you to wake him up if you hit this situation or that situation. So if you don't get picked up with your trainer, not the end of the world. As a matter of fact, I think that I'm not 100% sure. From what I saw when I was back on the pad, the people that stayed on the pad and did their training were a little bit more prepared overall than the people that went out with PSD trainers. So, and it doesn't mean that the PSD trainees didn't know anymore. I just felt like, from what I saw, it just seemed like they were able to rattle off, the pre-trips and, primarily a lot of the backing, because it's not real-world backing that you're doing when you're at the, at the pad. You're backing between lines, so that's primarily what you're getting trained on. So it seemed like they were a little bit more prepared for those type of things, while the PSD trainees were a little bit better on the road course. I could be wrong. Those are just things that I saw when I was out there. Trying to think if there's any other questions that I had. One question that somebody did ask, and I answered the question, but if you're coming to, and I can only speak about the Salt Lake City terminal in this, if you're coming to training with a significant other or friend or something like that, I don't think that it would be a problem if you had that set up to get your own or get a hotel room together, as long as you'd mention that up front rather than dealing with that once you get there. I don't think that that would be a problem. As far as, I'm just trying to answer a few questions that were asked of me. Some other people were asking if you drove your, first of all, listen, if there's a way that you can get around taking that Greyhound bus to, and this would apply to any terminal, don't take that bus if you don't need to. I drove a rental car. Listen, they said they were going to reimburse me for the rental car. They never did. Mainly that's because I just was tired of pushing them and asking them about it. But other people have got reimbursed. Get a rental car. Drive your own car. That was the question. Can you drive your own car? You can drive your own car. And, you could drive from the hotel to the terminal, or you could just park at the terminal. However you want to do it, you could do that. But I'm going to seriously advise against taking a Greyhound bus to the terminal or to training. Anyway, that was another question. So yes, you can take your own car. I'm not sure there were many other questions beside that. Listen, I'm a little tired. I'm just trying to get this knocked out before I go in here and go back to sleep. For the next couple of days, I'm possibly thinking about selling. I got about 9 smokers between up on this balcony and then downstairs on my patio. I'm thinking about cleaning up a couple of those, get those sold. Need to knock back this hairdo right quick. Need to set up a shopping list for some videos on my barbecue and cooking channel. So those are a couple of things I'm gonna do while I'm just relaxing before I really get into having fun on these next 20 days.